This is WPSL Port St. Lucie.
Following is a paid program. The content is provided by the advertiser. WPSL, its staff, management, and ownership are not responsible for the content. Investment involves risk. Prior to making any investment, an investor should meet suitability requirements. Past results are not necessarily indicative of future performance. Neither the opinions expressed nor the information provided constitutes a recommendation to purchase or provide investment advice. The material presented is not a substitute for obtaining professional advice from a qualified person or firm. Securities offered through Centaurus Financial, member FINRA and SIPC. And now, the host of the Team Martek Hour, Joe Martek.
And yes, we are. And I'm back from Mexico, which had an 8-day trip with my son, did our male bonding episode, and had an interesting time in a little town that was.
No one's ever heard of.
Well, it's near Puerto Vallarta on the Pacific coast, but you can only get there by boat because there's no roads, because it's these mountains right to the ocean. So it's like a 6-mile run by these panga boats, which are all outboards. And no matter what they do in that town, you should see them building stuff. Everything is brought in with bags of concrete. Then they dig a hole, and they pour all the concrete and water together in the hole. Then they bucket it out and build what they do. It's a little slower process than we have here.
Sounds like slave labor from the Romans' times.
Close.
Well, they have the same thing in Sicily, except there's bodies.
Do they use like straw and make bricks like that? Is that what
They
do?
didn't have any bricks. Everything was poured concrete.
Wow.
Pour.
Yeah.
Wow.
All solid. Everything I saw was, I didn't see one brick.
That lasts a long time.
Now, they got a lot of steps with poured concrete because they pour a form, make a step. This town was vertical. My son's in a wheelchair, so they lugged him around. He had 2 Mexicans lugging him up and down mountains. They didn't mind lugging him down so much, but boys, on a few occasions, they had to climb a couple hundred steps carrying him.
In his wheelchair?
No. He had one wheelchair he left at the house, and one wheelchair he left down, let's say, in a area that you can roll. And then now we're going to go, let's say, a mile to get all the way down to the beach. And it's a long trail that's only wide enough for the horse and the donkey, nothing else. So they have these 4-wheelers, the ATVs, and they drag my son. He's in his wheelchair, hanging onto the back end of this ATV, going up and down these hills. I got to tell you, they have lost him a couple of times, and luckily he didn't get permanently hurt. But he.
Hey, where there's a will, there's a way.
Yeah,
right?
You remember, Alan, when you were out in the parking lot with our co-producer laying on top of you? My son had 2 Mexicans on top of him at one point. But luckily they dumped him in sand, so, it wasn't too bad.
After 4 weeks of not being with you, that's how you want to introduce me? Thank you, Joe.
What's your name again? It's been so long I forgot.
Is that tequila hangover?
Oh, man, oh, man, oh, man. They do believe in tequila, and they do believe in beer.
You went on a cruise or what?
My son was a male bonding trip. He goes to this little town that you can't get there from here, near Puerto Vallarta. You can only get to by boat. Mm-hmm. It's built on the side of a cliff. Throwback in time, Greg. No chains, nothing. All throwback in time.
That sounds nice.
Well, it's beautiful. It's magnificent. And Greg, you would have a hard time believing this. I know you're going to have a hard time with this.
Mm-hmm.
Politically, there was not one conservative in the whole town. And they're all from California.
And you're surprised.
Hard to believe.
Hard to believe, right?
There's a lot of retirees?
Well, some retirees, some escapists, some 50s, 60s, 40s, hippie types, some very wealthy internet, computer, etc. from California that get to this town because it's a throwback in time.
Right.
They know that the war is over.
There's not
they
one
don't have
leash.
to dodge the draft anymore.
Not one dog is on a leash in the whole town. All dogs roam the town, and they stay by their house if they want to get fed.
And it's safe?
Yeah. Well, here's what happens. I think, in the Latin community, breaking and entering is considered an occupation, not a crime. Mm-hmm. But there is almost no crime against people and none against children. So kids roam the streets.
Just property.
Just property. But that's an occupation borrowing
I
people's
can
stuff.
just steal it back.
Right.
Yeah, you can steal it back if you don't like it. But
Because
the
I know
key-
some of the bigger cities are not all that safe.
No, but here, I mean, there is absolutely no crime. I mean, I will tell you this. If anybody ever committed a crime against a child, they're just missing the next day.
Yeah.
By the way, did you see
That's
the
justice.
UN report where Tijuana was classified as the most dangerous city in the world?
Tijuana.
Tijuana.
Well, I've been there. You've been there.
Yep. Oh yeah.
I'm not going
Yeah.
back.
Not
No.
going back. Exactly, not going back.
And that's why.
Well, you have to
that's-
go through there to get to Ensenada.
That's
and
why,
stuff.
probably
I'm not going
because of
back.
the
No.
drugs and.
Yeah, well,
big
big,
business.
Oh yeah.
big time.
Cartels. Yeah.
Yep.
Back in 2004, Greg Fasula, attorney, who is sitting here, Dan Woron, independent insurance agent, who is sitting here, and Joe Martek, financial advisor, who is not only sitting here but talking right now, said, wait a minute, let me phrase this properly. Joe Martek says to Dan first, let's do radio shows. Dan said, sounds like good to me. So I said, let's get Greg. And I go to see Greg, and I said, Greg, we're going to start doing radio shows. And he goes, why? And I said, well, Greg, we have different areas of expertise, and we can help people with different areas because each one of us has an area. And he said, how long do you think we're going to have to do this? And I said, Greg, this isn't a have to, this is a want to. And he goes, that's because you want to. He said,
I figured it'd be like 2 months.
hey, listen, not one of us ever dreamt that we'd be doing these radio shows
15 years.
15 years.
And Greg,
No,
you're going to
no
start
way.
your own radio show next week. By the way.
Really?
Have I told you?
really?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
that's news.
It's going to be on
That's news.
Tuesdays. Yeah, you got it. It's
Great.
yours.
And then, about 5 or 7 years ago, and I don't remember how long, but I've known this lady named Victoria Loyd, Remax of Stewart, hardest working person alive, not just the hardest working realtor alive. And I was just patting you on the back, Vic, before you came in
I
about.
felt that. Thank you.
You're welcome. Well, the key thing is this. One of the things that why the three of us got together, and one of the reason our guest attorney, Alan Love, prosecuting attorney from Wisconsin, is here, and one of the reasons we have this group is the magic word integrity. I have, even though Greg and I may not agree always politically, Greg, I go out of my way to recommend him constantly to people because Greg will not take advantage of anybody. And I've loved watching these ads in the paper where these guys are selling living trusts.
Right.
And I'm thinking, how many people that go in there do you think really need a trust that walk out with this trust? And the answer is lots.
A lot of them, I'm sure.
Anyway,
But I like to give the client both sides. I mean, without really knowing what their situation is as far as what they own, what their
Right,
assets
right,
are.
exactly.
It's hard just to say you need a trust.
well, I was talking to these people yesterday that are originally from Jamaica, and they've done very well. They're living in a golf course country club community down in Wellington, and they were talking about a trust, and I said, tell me what you've got, and they went through it, and I taught them about TOD, transfer on death, beneficiaries. I mean, I get this thing constantly. Got a client of mine last week or 2 weeks ago, I went to see him, and they've got a trust, and the attorney says, well, you got to transfer everything into the trust. So, Joe, we got to transfer our annuity contracts and our retirement accounts into the trust. And I said, no, you don't. So at the end of that,
Not a good idea.
I saved them a trip because everything was fine that they already had done. So they had the TOD agreements on their bank, on their brokerage account. They had beneficiaries. They did not need to do one extra step. Now, why in the world would an attorney want them to do that extra step, Greg? Do you have any clue?
None whatsoever.
Dan and I know, but
We suspect, Joe.
we suspect it might be greed. But
Jerry Maguire, show me the money.
show me the money, right? So anyway, Ms. Victoria Loyd, when all of a sudden the world was coming to an end in 09 and 08 in real estate, we needed to have an expert because questions were coming at us right and left about deed backs and foreclosures and modifications and how hard it was to get done. In fact, these people yesterday, same thing, modification never went through. And if they'd have had somebody working with them, it might have happened. But
It would have.
Yeah, you know-
it made all the difference in the world.
You know
Joe.
what I'm
and I
talking
can
about.
tell you that, and that's with anything that we do. If you have the right professionals helping you, you'll get something done.
well, then the same people. Now I'm sitting there, and on my envelope that I have, I've got all of our names and addresses and phone numbers on there. So the next thing is they own a house, and they've got some debt. And I said, I started to explain about a reverse mortgage, which most people, if you got a negative connotation immediately. And I said, okay, refinance a 15-year mortgage. It's interesting, Vic. You go through this, and Greg, these people, the first house they had was in her name, and they short-sailed it. Her name only.
Correct.
Her credit score is, like she said, 650. His is very good because nothing was in his name. And I says, well, hey, you refinance the house, put it in his name. You're on the mortgage and the deed, but he has a 7-something credit score. He'll get a better interest rate and a better deal, pay off the debt, and you guys are in good shape. And I said, hey, besides you're on the deed, that way when you get rid of your husband, you still got the house.
That's right.
But that's not going to happen.
I know.
This is a 50-50 state.
Next member, Mr. Mike Powis, mortgage broker, hand in glove with Victoria Loyd. What we've learned about mortgages from Mike is staggering. And what does happen in his business, more than I think Dan and ours, the changes that happen to him are almost weekly, with mortgage companies now competing more and more for business because the economy is so good. So they've made it easier and easier to get a mortgage. Not quite as easy as it was in the heyday of before the bust. But
Well, let's hope it never gets quite that easy, Joe. I mean, truthfully, you should, in my opinion, have to be able to show the ability to repay the note.
Well, there's the old rule. It wasn't back before the credit scores became a thing because of computers. Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac had a rule said ability to pay. You had to prove that you could afford to make the payment. Well, they're back to that now, but now they're using a credit score as one of the big criteria. But you still have to prove that you can actually afford to make the payment.
Absolutely. Yeah, they verify everything that you give them. And that's, it's kind of funny that you should say that, because a lot of people will write up a contract and they go, what do you mean it takes 30 or 45 days to get a commitment or an answer? Because there's so many people, you sit down on the table and you go, Victoria, I don't want a piece of paper say they're pre-approved. I don't want to know they're approved.
Yeah.
Well, I can't give that to you.
No.
I'd be lying to you if I told you I could.
No
and I
such
can't
thing.
do it. There's no such thing. And you're not going to get it from anybody.
No.
And if they do tell you that, they're not telling you the
They're
truth.
not telling you the truth.
You
right.
know, he said, oh, this one real estate agent came in and he said he'll sell it in this many days and he can do this and and I said,
Maybe
yeah.
if it's a cash purchase.
No, it was a lie. Everything was a lie.
It was a lie.
There's no way you can go in and say I'm going to sell your house in 10 days and that's
Unless
it. And
he
I
buys it
guarantee
himself.
Yeah, please.
Yeah.
And
Well,
then
yes,
you really
can.
want to discount.
Lower your price by 50%.
That's right. I'll buy it.
I'll sell it in 2 days.
Yeah. And I look at people and it's so unrealistic.
Of
Some
course.
of the things that people, and they believe them, and that scares me.
It's too bad.
Well,
It is bad that people lie like that and just talk like
it just
that.
reminds me, Greg, of attorneys. I've been in Stewart since '84. Victoria was here even longer. But we had 2 old-time attorneys in town that were handshake attorneys.
Mm-hmm.
And both of them
Stewart used to be that kind of town.
used to be, right?
Used to be.
And it was one, they both quit practicing, but the one especially quit practicing. He did mediations for divorces and stuff afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
I said, why'd you quit? And he said, I was in this town for 20 years. When the adversarial attorney, we were having a contest, I'd shake his hand, he'd shake my hand. We did not lie. Neither one of us. We could trust each other completely. He
Right.
said, when that changed, he said, it killed me because I was so used to doing business the honorable way.
Yeah.
And, hey, it's Dan, we all see it. It's just a sad thing in life, but that's just called the way it is today.
But attorneys know that. My son's an attorney up in South Carolina.
Right?
Well, he belongs to this group of the oldest attorneys in Columbia,
Uh-huh.
and they bring in young attorneys to just to get to know who they are and what they do, and he goes, it's amazing how much integrity these old attorneys have, and how they really preach to us. This is what has to be preserved, and this is what you have to work towards, and so even though there are a lot of attorneys out there who perhaps are not honorable, I do believe there are a lot of them who really are.
Well, there are. We know that, right?
It's good that they pass that down, because if they don't see that, if they don't see the older attorneys
Right.
with that type of integrity, it's
Yeah.
really,
Jades.
they don't know that that's really the way it should be.
All you have to do is read a John Grisham book. All honest attorneys.
But you know, attorneys have tremendous power, and if they abuse it, it really hurts society.
Well, you know what? You might notice, Dan, that most
They're all in
people,
Congress.
I'm just going to say, you know,
They couldn't cut it as an attorney.
they couldn't cut it as an attorney, right?
That's what they say about judges, right?
Well, hey, look at, you remember a few years ago, Greg said, what do you think about being a judge? And I said, well, you want to cut and pay, Greg, and then you never make any money the rest of your life and you get divorced? I mean, what do you think? And he said, I guess that's not such the best idea.
Not much home life.
Nice home life. 340-1590, 340-1590. I want to talk about another subject that came up on my way here today. And Greg, I'm so happy you're here because this was 100% a legal question.
Illegal or legal?
No, 100%
Illegal
legal.
or illegal?
Well, I'm going to give you the example. An existing client of mine has a shirt-tail relative who's dying of an incurable lung disease who doesn't have much money.
First of all, what's a shirt-tail relative?
Means a divorced her brother.
Oh.
So it used to be a relative.
Oh, okay.
Now it's on the outside of the shirt. Anyway.
Oh, okay.
Oh, that's funny. I
Haven't
never
you ever
heard
heard
that.
a shirt-tail relative?
No, Jim.
No, never.
Yeah, you have too. Anyway, it's like your hip pocket, Vic.
No, that's right. I'm on it like a hip pocket.
Anyway, so what happens is this person owns a house, and let's say the house is worth $200,000 but owes less than $100,000.
Mm-hmm.
She said, I'd like to get some money and be able to play before I die. I'm paraphrasing. Would you give me $10,000 and I'm going to leave you my house in a will?
What's her name?
Yes, I know. So,
Have you got her address?
Really?
well, wait a minute. So I said, well, hey, that's all fine and good, leaving you the house in the will, and then she dies, then it's your house. And I said, this is perfectly good on a step up. Why not?
Well, because she can always change that will.
Exactly.
Ah, you see. Vic, that was exactly, I said, here's the problem.
I'm a woman. I know these things.
I said, the problem is a will is called last, and that one could be changed 10 times after you got yours. And
Yeah.
she said, well, what other way can you possibly do it? And I said, I'm going to
Yeah.
wear Greg Fasula's hat right now and called an irrevocable trust.
Right. Right.
But I think there's a
That
but in there
cannot
too.
be changed.
Well, no. She
I'm trying to think about what the best way would be.
Irrevocable trust.
You think?
Well, think about this. A revocable, same thing as a will, we can change our mind. But if I deed my house into an irrevocable trust, and I'm no
Yeah.
longer, I'm not in charge of it, I don't own it, it's now owned a
Right.
trust, and the person who I'm leaving the house to is the trustee,
The beneficiary.
and the beneficiary,
Or the trustee also.
the
yeah.
owner,
Yeah.
and then all that happens is that's no longer my house.
Yeah.
But I can have a life estate, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Life estate means I can stay in the house till I die, and then that house automatically. Because look at charitable trusts, Greg. Same thing. Somebody says I'm going to leave the church $1 million, but not until I die. But they put it into an irrevocable trust, and they get an income from it while they're alive, and then bam, the church can count it as an asset.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
So I
Well,
What if they sold it to me for, if they owe 100,000, sell it to me for 110? They get their 10,000 at closing. I get to keep the house. I own the house.
Yeah, it's
and I
deeded
can
to
give
you.
it back them in a life estate.
well, the other side of
yeah. Possible life estate. There's two types of life estates.
Right.
One where you retain the power to sell and convey,
Right,
and you
right.
can always change that life
Right,
estate.
right.
Or you can do a life estate where you leave out those powers. So the remainder person, you wouldn't be able to sell it without the remainder person.
Now but let's go into tax consequences. If I have a house and I paid $100,000 and I sell it for $200,000, a primary residence, right? No tax on the $100,000 gain. If I sell it to Dan for $110,000 today, and Dan goes and sells it when I die for $200,000, Dan's got a $90,000 or $100,000 gain.
But if
that he
I
has
keep
to
it
pay.
more than 5 or a couple of years,
But you got to live in it.
I can live in it.
Does your wife know about that? You've
Well,
already got a
hey,
homestead.
I didn't say I'd homestead it. I said I'd live in it.
No, you have to homestead it though.
You didn't say that, Joe.
Well, now
But
here's
now he did.
you got to live in it
It's always a glitch.
2 of 5 years, right? But you can't have 2 homesteads.
No,
That's correct.
That's true.
So anyway, what I'm
But all the homestead does is give me a little bit tax relief for
Well,
$50,000.
but does another thing, you're protected from creditors, homestead.
Well, that's true.
I mean, that's a big deal.
It is a big deal.
Getting sued is to sue America.
I'm not getting.
And I've seen that a lot when I've had closings where things have popped up and
Yeah.
and they've had their father died and
Yeah.
they said he owed $30,000 on a credit card. He said my father never charged $30,000 in his life. And a title company would not close on it. We had to cancel the closing. But I went to an attorney title, where he's an attorney.
Right.
And he said, all you got to do is sign a piece of paper saying that was not your father's.
Yeah.
And we could, because it was homesteaded.
Right.
Yeah.
So, see, you got to go to the right people.
Back
to make
again,
things happen.
knowing somebody that knows what they're talking about, right?
It makes all the difference in the
same
world.
issue. So all I was trying to say was to her, and then, by the way, Greg, you're doing an irrevocable trust soon. Don't worry about that.
Okay.
But to me, that was the easiest way to go and does not affect the step up on a sale because she inherits the house on the death, and now she can sell it for $200 or $300 and no tax.
Correct.
Value up, value
Yeah,
up.
it sounds like a good idea.
Anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Well, boy, I'm so proud of myself. Don't you think, Greg? Are
You're
you,
good.
Greg, are you learning anything today?
I have a question.
The answer is he
Yes.
just fell asleep on
What's
me.
that
We
question?
got a question.
This is the owner's husband is being producing today. But did Carol give you permission to actually pretend like you know what you're doing today?
No.
I didn't think so. Okay. Anyway,
I
Alan
have a
Love's got a question.
Yes, here's the question. You have an irrevocable trust,
Right.
and the trustee is also the beneficiary
Right.
of the irrevocable trust, and gives a life estate to, say, his mother,
Go ahead.
who's living in the house.
Right.
Okay. But the son, who is the trustee and the beneficiary, dies and doesn't leave any contingent beneficiary in the trust.
Guess
what
what?
happens then?
You have to have a successor trustee. You don't name one.
that's
You have a
called probate.
successor trustee.
You have to have a successor.
Well,
Well,
You
you
should
should.
have.
You need to have a beneficiary, right? A successor beneficiary.
Okay.
Absolutely. And if you haven't named a trustee, then you would have to go to court to have one named.
You name
possibly
it.
a bank.
So I already offered
Okay,
it.
so how
something
long
like
would
that.
that take in probate?
Yeah. Right.
You don't know. At
Takes
least
forever.
well,
Good.
at least 6 months probably.
No. So yeah, that's a good point. You need to name.
And if the mom
contingents.
died in those 6 months, then what happens?
There's all kinds of things that can be addressed in the trust, that can be addressed in the trust if a, quote, you're going to love this word, competent attorney with integrity drafts this thing properly.
Yeah, my irrevocable trust, I name a trustee, an alternate trustee, and then I name a possible bank in case those
Just in case.
trustees' names,
And I've seen
they're
that
not
happen
able
quite
to
often.
act. So
Now,
at least you have a financial institution there.
So you're trying to
back it
think
up.
ahead for the what ifs. What
Of
if?
course.
What if?
Yeah, you have to. You're supposed to.
Well, we have a what if right now. One of my clients have passed away, and her daughter-in-law is the executor of the trust. But then when they went to go see the life insurance, she never took her husband off as beneficiary on the life insurance
He gets
policy.
it.
He still gets
well, he's
it.
dead.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, but who?
So that's-
Now they've got a
was
That's
there a
probate.
contingent beneficiary?
no.
Oh,
See,
And I've seen that happen.
Yeah, I
yeah.
have-
So
It happens quite often.
yeah. So now
Actu-
they have to work on that too.
Actually, you're going to get a kick out of this. And Greg, years and years ago, I had this old lady I took care of for 10 years.
I remember.
And she died. And all of a sudden, 6
Now,
months
did you marry her too?
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Six,
okay.
He tried.
6 months after she had money. It was worth marrying her.
She was
Anyway.
pregnant.
So 6 months after she dies, I get this letter from Metropolitan Life Insurance, said she had life insurance. Now, we never found anything and stuff, but I was the one that signed the death certificate, so they sent it to me. So I called Metropolitan, I said, how much is it? And he said, 20 grand. And I said, good, how do I get it? He said, you can't have it. And I said, why? I was power of attorney. I took care of this lady for 10 years. Nope, there's no contingent beneficiary. It has to be in the bloodline.
Yes.
Now, she had no children.
Weren't you a blood brother?
I became a bloodline. I was Italian for instant. It didn't work, you know. Anyway, so then I said, blood. So what happens is she's got a sister. Okay, that's fine. She can have the money. And I said, okay. So I called the sister who was up in New York and said, by the way, Virginia, now understand, this family was not close. They never talked to each other. When I took care of this lady, it was called, good, you got her. We don't have her. So I called her up and I said, Virginia left life insurance. She goes, how much? And I said, 20 grand. She goes, good. Who gets it? I said, you do. She goes, good. How do I get it? And I said, well, you're going to call this attorney named Greg Fasula, and he'll get the paperwork, and so you can get it. Okay, good. When's he going to call? I said, he'll call you today or tomorrow. Oh, good. Goodbye. Done. So then I called Greg. I said, Greg, this family is the worst piece of crap family I've ever known in my whole life. They stole, they did everything, and now they're going to get this money.
Yeah.
I said, you need to charge $1,000. And I told her you were going to charge $1,000 to do this paperwork, and she was thrilled because she's going to get $19,000 now.
Right.
And Greg says, Joe, it seems a little. I said, tough. I can't have the money. At least I want you to have it, and you can buy me 25 lunches or something like that, I said.
Right. So in that situation, it kind of worked out because the sister was still living.
Yeah.
But what if she? What if she?
If
would
there were
have
no
passed?
blood relatives.
So what
Yeah,
happens?
I mean, if
The
she
sister
had
got the money.
children, you know.
Yeah, but what
niece-
if there weren't anybody
Well, here's
alive?
what
would
That's
happen
the
is
thing.
you have to look
No,
for.
but if the sister had children,
Right.
then the bloodline would keep going.
Right.
So this is the daughter-in-law, which it's supposed to go to her, but she has children. I mean, her husband died too, and the lady that died, her son had died. That's the one she was married to at the time. She's never remarried.
But anyway, she had blood relatives somewhere down the line.
Lorraine.
And
yeah, she
the one that
probably
died.
did.
you know, that's not easy.
Yeah, because she was
Locating
already
those
89
people.
years old.
But they still have to find this blood relative. There's
So
gotta
that's
be.
the only way we're going to do it? I mean, what is blood? I mean,
Well,
can't it be
get-
a grandson?
blood is-
Can it be a grandson?
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
absolutely.
Well, that's
blood.
what I'm saying, because
Yeah.
she has grandsons and
It's
stuff.
what it's blood, but you know the key is this. Now you got to go through a court process and
Well, they are.
eliminate
That's what they're doing.
eliminate relatives that might be there. Now you go and your illegitimate son Joe Martek shows up.
Yeah.
And I said, do a blood test. I messed with an Italian once, you know.
Anybody we know?
Anyway, you know what I'm trying to say is, the legal system in defense of Greg and Alan, in order to go from point A to point B, sometimes the road is rocky, and it might take 6 months or a year. But there is no other way to get there but to go through these steps. Am I right?
Yeah. So the moral of the story is, if you have an old insurance policy, you need to check. And I tell clients this. I just saw a lady recently. The same situation.
Yeah.
You know, she had old insurance policies. Her husband had passed, and she didn't even know who her beneficiaries were. So,
I had our buddy Bulldog that calls in. You know, when I was seeing him, he had something that was going to go to his ex-wife, and then just in our conversation, we cured that problem.
Oh, that's great.
You know, because it does happen. People forget, and it happens quite often, especially in you buy a life insurance contract when you're 25, and you get divorced when you're 55, and you forgot totally who the beneficiaries were, or even that you might even have that policy.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden,
things
X number of
change.
days later, bam, that ex-wife or whatever her family is,
Yeah.
they're the ones that get the money.
Can I leave in the middle of the show? I think my insurance policies go back to the 70s.
Yeah, now you're
You can
nervous,
remember-
right?
You can remember back that far?
No, I can't.
But you have
you
Carol
probably have
keeping
your
you in
mom
line.
as the
Hopefully it wasn't
beneficiary.
invisible ink. I mean,
Yeah.
Probably as your mom is the beneficiary or something.
Well,
You
you
know, actually, no, seriously.
Who was it?
It,
The beneficiary?
Could be your parents.
You don't know.
well, it
Should be Carol, right?
would think it was Carol.
You it better be Carol. You better check that pretty quick. Hey, Carol.
Check his insurance policy.
340-1590, 340-1590. You know, one thing we didn't do today, we didn't talk any politics at all, and we got Greg here. Alan, come on, you got to help.
What do you want to talk to? what?
Well, I think it's early. I mean, we've got 20 people now on the Democratic side that are running. The field has to be cut a little bit, and then we can talk seriously about the serious candidates that are going to be remaining. But I think the Democratic Party is in trouble if they continue to talk as green and as socialist as they are.
Well, you know,
Well, who's doing that, Ellen?
Well,
There's
Bernie.
very few that are.
Bernie, big time.
Okay, Bernie.
Omar and
Omar.
Well, those are new Congress people.
those aren't going to get
that
in.
are far
No.
left.
Well,
I mean,
you know,
that's
we're going to have to amend the Constitution so Bernie and Ocasio can be on the same ticket.
You know, the very interesting thing, 2 days ago, the University of Chicago released a poll of millennials, and it was shocking where Joe Biden was high double figures.
Yeah. But
Bernie was at 11%.
Right.
And all the new young, or relatively young, in Kamala Harris's
Right.
was like 2%. Beto O'Rourke was 1%.
But it's
and these
also-
are all millennials.
Yeah, no, but you have to understand, even millennials have to have jobs and show up for work, and it's not high on their list to understand what's going on. You know, working people with kids and families and stuff. Name recognition, Joe Biden, who doesn't?
Everybody
you can't
knows
be alive
Joe.
and not know Joe Biden.
everybody knows Joe, and
Yeah.
he's been in Congress so long.
Kinda
He's
like
been
an
in
old
the White
shoe,
House
yeah.
a long time.
Yeah,
He can go in day one, and he can take over that job and
he could, and he
do
may,
a great job.
and he may. You know, there's Uncle Joe, right?
Yep.
340-1590, 340-1590. All right, we got a caller. Let's see. It says Bob. Did we loot? Our producer here, Bob. It's Joe Martek. You're on the radio.
He's gone.
He's gone.
He's
What-
gone
that-
already.
That was quick. Well, guess what? He did.
I enjoyed his message,
That
though.
was a great message.
Call back, Bob.
Anyway, isn't that battery operated? Never mind what that was.
Do you think that based on the large number of potential Democratic candidates who are all vying for the nomination, that whoever gets it will just be a sacrificial lamb because they already know he's going to get beat? So they don't really care who gets in?
See, you're.
No,
I'm having a
Dan,
hard.
That's not the case. Why
See?
is there so
Wait,
many?
a nice setup, Dan. That was good. It was good.
Why is there
Reel
so
'em
many
in.
Democrat candidates? Because we have a president with record low approval ratings.
Actually, that's
It's
not
like
true.
sharks in the water. They smell blood.
He's
And
over
that's
50%
why you have
now.
Yeah, that's
That
not-
Disapproval
yeah.
or
that-
approval?
Approval. Approval.
Yeah, his approval rates are.
yeah.
What's happened is
We'll see about that.
I know. We listen. There's
Record
two
low.
sides to every coin. My description of our president.
Unless you're Italian.
Heads I win, tails you lose.
If you're Italian, it only comes up one side. We know that. But it's weighted coins. Vic, you had those in your family, right?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. The key thing is, and if the economy stays like it is today, the odds are extremely good that the current administration will get in. Now, there are people that do not like the current administration for the way they get to the end, but the end is extremely good today. I'm speaking for
we
Dan
know
because
that
he's
the economy is on the exact same trajectory it was when Obama left office. And-
trajectory. You say or trajectory?
Trajectory.
Hey, by the
The
way,
exact same.
Let me
So,
ask- let-
so it's not like Trump took over and all of a sudden the economy got good. It was good when he came into office, and we know,
and it came better.
and we know where deficits are. You know, remember the deficits that were going to shrink so
Little
fast.
minor thing.
And Trump had said, well, the trade deficit, that's going to shrink too. It's a terrible thing. Look what Obama did. It's record highs. So
Because
Remember-
we don't have the trade deals in place yet that we need.
You see, there is an answer to. Let me ask you.
remember when Bill Clinton was president
Oh,
and
man.
the economy was doing well?
Absolutely.
What happened to the deficit? Disappeared.
Temporarily.
That's the way it should. That's the way it
And
should
you
be.
and you know
I mean,
why
because
that
of the
happened?
House and Senate?
Because
That
the
was like Bill
Republicans worked with Bill Clinton, not
Right.
blocked everything.
Right. And Bill Clinton was a governor. He knew how to balance budgets. He knew what he was doing.
You know what? And
He knew how to make his problems disappear. I know that.
we all learned that oral sex is not cheating, and now we learned some really good things from him. That was important.
he didn't know how to bankrupt casinos. Put it that way.
Well, but knowing how to listen, I've tried to bankrupt casinos many times.
How could anybody bankrupt a casino?
Really easy.
Come on.
You know how to read cards. Anyway,
Yeah, that's why Las Vegas is
let's listen. Hey,
not
Mike,
growing.
it's Joe Martek. You're on the radio.
Hey, welcome back to the States. It sounds like you had a great time.
I did. I didn't learn any more. I still know my few words of Spanish. Cerveza, por favor, baño. You know those standard words, right, Mike?
I know just enough to get my face slapped if I try it.
We've all been there.
I couldn't call in a couple of weeks ago. I was tied up down at my massage parlor in Jupiter I go to.
I know, but I didn't see your name in the paper, though.
No, there's new management now, a new owner, nice California gal, Miss Fleiss. I think she said her name was Heidi.
Yeah, Heidi.
Real nice.
Heidi, yeah, she was good, Miss Madam. And
There was an old timer kept coming in there, a Mr. Kraft. We don't see him now.
I know.
Seems to have gotten himself into a bit of a crack. 77 years old, and by all accounts, can't get enough love and affection. My question is, what's his secret?
Yeah, right. It's. You know what? We all kind of joke about it, and I feel sorry for the guy a little bit. But the bottom line is, he could afford the most expensive hookers on earth, and it wouldn't even make a dent. But hey, what can I?
They're called dates, not hookers.
Oh, dates. Okay, yes, right. He could
You know,
afford.
I'm not politically correct, never was, never will be. My impression is that the attractive, successful, self-confident woman is not afraid or bothered by men being men. It's the other kind of women who are not such winners who seem to really have a problem with men being the way men are. I'd like Veronica's opinion on that.
How about Victoria's opinion? Because Veronica's not here today.
Oh, okay. That'd be wonderful.
We got the owner's husband being our procrastinate. What do you call yourself here, Greg? What do you do?
I'm the janitor.
The janitor. Okay, good. Anyway, Victoria, explain to Mike what you think of. Hey, Victoria.
Yes.
Italian men.
Yes.
Did you ever marry one?
No.
Would you?
No.
Why not? We're great people.
And I'm probably not supposed to say this, but I'd probably kill him.
You see, Mike. You see, Mike. What happens is Victoria.
Sounds like a normal relationship.
Normal relationship, right?
No, and I'm really easygoing, as Joe would tell you.
Oh boy. Oh boy.
Yeah, he says
Trying
that
to be so confusing on everyone, and it doesn't seem to be helping the situation between the men and the women.
Well,
That's
I think
what
it
I
is sad, and I think it's getting worse all the time, and especially with them coming down on all these men. Like, I can tell you, every man that I ever probably dated in my lifetime should be in jail if somebody turned him in for the way they touched you. And you used to take those things as a compliment that somebody thought you were attractive enough to say something to you,
and that's where you were going, Mike.
Yeah.
A man's a man and a woman's a woman.
Yeah, and there was nothing wrong with that, and I don't take offense to it at all.
No.
I mean, I just, I did take offense to one gentleman that tried to rape me one time, but, when I was modeling and stuff.
You called him a gentleman.
Well,
I know.
At the time he was. I mean, he came highly, highly recommended to me,
Yeah.
and everybody knew him.
Yeah.
But that didn't make any difference,
No,
and he
no.
had all the money in the world.
Sure.
But he didn't do it. I was able to get away from him. Those kind of things I don't understand. But.
Well, listen, every man, I mean, I remember in 7th grade at St. Agatha's, we had a coat room up north. You ever believe we lived in up north and going to school?
We had those in L.A.
We had to take our coats off and boots off and in the coat room. Well, it was a co-ed coat room. Well, now all of a sudden these little girls last year didn't have any bumps on their bodies. Now all of a sudden they did. So there was few fields that were copped in the coat room.
Uh-oh.
Well, the nuns were unhappy, and my one buddy of mine, his father was a cop. Well, back then you were allowed to beat up your kid. He came to school really a mess the next day. But I think he's gay now because he
Oh, God.
Mike, we're on the same page, my man.
Well, thank you so much for letting me call in, and I'm glad that you're back.
Hey, listen, Mexico is magnificent. It's wonderful for Mexicans.
Are you going back?
No.
I didn't even know you were there.
Yeah, well, she really missed me bad. No. But I had a really good time. This town was 6 miles away from it's a throwback in time. It was just absolutely wonderful.
Did you gain some weight?
Yes.
Yeah, I figured.
You know, like tacos is all you're allowed to eat there. That's all it was.
My.
So-
I love that kind of food,
Huh?
and I love
What's the
my
name of the
Latina
town?
friends. The Latino women I know, they know what men are like, and they have no problem with
That's
it.
right.
No, they don't. No, they don't. They absolutely know exactly, and it was really a very, very enjoyable. Hey, you know, you'll get a kick out of this, Mike. So, this one husband throws a surprise party for his wife's birthday. She was 50. So basically, the whole town, everybody's invited. So they had a 10-piece mariachi band, 40 cases of beer, tequila, everything. And the magic of it is, he got his wife to work her own party.
Yeah, but we do that.
I
we
know.
do that,
We-
Joe. You
I
know
know.
that.
We were all very happy.
Well,
with
they
it.
do it because they want all the guests to have a good time, and they're
that's
being good
well,
hostesses.
Of course she
And
did.
it's true.
And
That's
he was
true.
sitting there being a guest, like the rest of us guys. Hey, Mike, thanks for calling in, my man. Good to hear from you.
Okay, have a good week, y'all.
Thanks. 340-1590, 340-1590. Let me ask you, Greg, when you go to school in Alabama,
Yeah.
there's a trust, right? And it has two words. It was irrevocable or irrevocable. Which is the word in Alabama?
I don't remember. I think it's irrevocable.
I'm just curious because I heard you say it both ways. I was just wondering which was Italian and which is Alabama. All right, we got another phone call here. Tim, it's Joe Martek. You're on the radio.
Hey, Joe. Good morning to you guys.
Good morning, my man. Thanks for calling.
Yeah, I got a question for Greg or Craig.
Go ahead.
I've got a motorhome that I'm trying to sell,
Mm-hmm.
and it has a lien on it through my credit union on the title. And it's kind of a process question. I've got a buyer that's interested, and I was wondering, do I fill out a bill of sale with him and then get his check, give it to the credit union, let them clear the title, get the title back, and sign it over to him? Or how's the best way to do that to protect both parties?
Oh boy, what is the best way to do that? I mean, it's a mobile home. It's not like a
An RV.
It's
real
same as a
estate.
car, same
yeah,
as
it's
it-
same as a car.
Yeah,
so,
you have a title.
Well, wait
Right.
a second. Is this a mobile home or an RV?
But it's the same scenario. They're all based
It's
on
an
the title.
RV.
It's
No, it's an RV.
yeah, but it's a title rather than having a title
Rather
on a
than a
trailer.
deed.
Rather than a deed.
Oh,
No,
of
You,
course.
you
Yeah.
wouldn't go through like a title company
No.
to clear
No.
that title. So I think you're on the right track there, bill of sale.
Honestly, what I would do, I would
Isn't
call
that a
your
DMV thing?
yeah, you call your credit
Yes, it
union
is, a
and
DMV
see
thing.
and ask their procedure.
Mm-hmm.
I talked to them, and they weren't a whole lot of help. They said, yeah, just usually we get the check and we clear the title, and then we put the rest in your account. But kind of the first steps there he may be reluctant to give me a check
Right,
without something.
right,
You
Bill of
could
sale would maybe be sufficient.
right.
I can tell you what I did when I bought a car for my daughter that had a lien on it. I had my attorney handle the entire transaction, which made the seller feel more at ease. I said, you make the check out to my attorney.
Trust
Do
account.
not make it out to me. He will make
Okay.
sure everything gets cleared, and he will remit you the check. And he was happy with that. So
Yeah.
that may
That's
be
a good
maybe
point.
a solution for you.
Yeah, that's a good point.
We actually happen to know an attorney that's sitting here. He's in Port St. Lucie if you're close by.
Yeah,
I
the
need to
mon-
get an appointment for something
The
else.
money
too.
would go into a trust, a
Yeah.
Florida Bar trust account. So yeah,
I see.
the buyer would feel more comfortable.
Greg, what's your phone number, your office?
It's 772-337-0062.
$50.
I got one.
Come on.
What?
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
Bucks.
Just one other question here is, can I get a copy of the title without doing? Just call the DMV and get a title
I don't
copy
think
of the
so.
title sent.
I don't think so.
What, you got a
I mean,
lien
you,
on
you
it?
have to. You have to.
Well,
You should
I
have
did-
it.
A lot
You
of the
have to pay
titles
for it.
are electronic now.
Right.
So
Right, I'm
I-
sure this is.
I do believe that if you want a paper title, there's a small little fee for that, but most all of them are electronic.
Well, your credit union's holding it. That's the person that holds it till you pay it off.
Yeah, but that's okay.
So that's
but
where
his-
you have to go to is the credit union.
But they might be able to give you a copy of it.
yeah, they
He's
probably could give you a
trying
copy.
to. he's trying to arrange financing, and his bank wants a copy of the title.
Well, I think the credit union could fax it straight to the bank.
Yeah,
If you
absolutely.
Put them together. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what they do.
Yeah.
Yeah, they work together.
Okay,
Or maybe have your credit union
fine.
finance it for them. They'll be happy.
Yeah, there you go.
They might not want to on an outsider. Is it a fifth wheel or is it the kind you drive?
No, it's a Class A
Motorhome.
Yeah, I have one too.
Motorhome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh,
Victoria's got a diesel pusher for her husband's golf clubs.
I do.
That's a good reason to have one.
It's
Of
exactly.
course.
All right, my man. Hope we helped you.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
And we
Bye-bye.
got our probably our last caller of the day, Mr. Bulldog. How you feeling, guy? You're on the radio. Bulldog,
Hey,
how you feeling?
welcome back, Joe.
Thanks.
And good to see all you guys back in.
Yeah. We got.
Alan, give me a call sometime when you got a chance.
You got Bulldog's phone number, Alan?
Yeah, I'll do it, Bulldog.
All right.
Sure.
All right, good. But Miss Vic, I'd like to talk to you after this about the son's home.
Yeah, no problem.
All right.
She'll
Thank
call
you.
She'll call you also. Are you behaving yourself?
Trying to, ma'am.
I understand.
Cancer's a bitch, you
Well,
know.
Who has
but
cancer?
I'll beat it.
You'll beat it. You'll beat it.
I didn't know you had it, Bulldog. I'm sorry.
You're supposed to talk to him more often, Vic.
Well, we did.
Well,
Last time I talked to you, you didn't mention it.
it's in my tongue, so I've either got chemo or surgery or something coming. So
Well,
I don't know.
You know that you mean there's a chance you won't be able to talk anymore, and this would make you an absolutely perfect person, Bulldog.
No, Bulldog. Oh, God, I'm so sorry. Was it a...
Oh, that is funny, Joe. Thank you.
You're welcome.
By the way, you better learn sign language because I'm coming after you.
Well, if I hear a Harley in the neighborhood, I'm running. I'm telling you right now.
Wow.
Okay, Bulldog. Listen, you'll hear from Alan and from Vic. Okay.
Take care.
All right, thanks,
Bye.
guys.
Bye.
Compassionate Joe.
Compassionate Joe, 340-15.
Yeah, you got a great Jesuit education.
I know. The Jesuits had no compassion. There wasn't a drop on them any place. If you didn't have scotch, they wouldn't even come visit you.
Well, you know, attorneys have to assess things, right, Greg?
Assess.
Assess things.
Wait a minute.
Well,
does that mean charge extra?
I am making
assessor.
an assessment here. Thank God the last 25 minutes of this show was not on another radio station at 4:30 today.
You know you're right, because I'd have been evicted.
Yeah, we got to clean them up before.
340.
That's why there's free radio out here.
That's
right.
This is
it.
340.
Joe can actually talk the way he wants to.
Well, within some
wow.
limits. You also have a 5-second delay here, right?
Yeah, I'll use it.
340-1590, 340-1590. So we've got Alan Love, special guest attorney, retired prosecutor from Wisconsin here today, Ms. Victoria Loyd, Remax of Stewart, Mr. Greg Fasula, Esquire, attorney. I love that, Esquire. You know, that used to be a magazine until you attorneys took
Barrister.
it over. Barrister. I love barrister even better. That was
Colonel.
Colonel?
Solicitor
Kentucky
and
Colonel.
barrister.
Solicitor. It's in the UK, right? They
Right.
still use that. Right?
Right. That's the trial lawyers, right, Alan? The solicitor?
Yes.
Isn't that what Kraft got in trouble for?
Soliciting, yeah. Is he not an attorney too?
It's a different kind of solicitor.
Are we going to have a more, shall we say,
Family-friendly?
family-friendly show next week? Or
Not here, no.
No, I see.
We don't have families here. We
Maybe on the Christian.
listen. Kids are in
station
school
later.
today, you know, so we don't have to worry too
It's
much.
not spring break. I thought it was spring break.
Yeah, I
That
thought
was
so,
last
too.
week.
I don't keep up.
It's over now.
It's different in every
Yeah,
county.
it's different.
Yeah.
It's
Are they on spring break in St. Lucie County?
They are, yes.
Okay, take back everything I just said. 340-1590, 340-1590. Anybody wants to talk to any one of us during the week, you call that radio station. They'll give you our name and number. Remember, we got Greg Fasula, attorney, Dan Woron, independent insurance agent, Joe Martek, financial advisor, Victoria Loyd, Remax of Stewart, and Mike Paulus, mortgage broker, which leads me into this couple I was with yesterday talking about mortgages. And I said, you know, literally all of their problems can be cured because they owe very little on their house if they refinance and pay off their problems and have a good interest rate on a 15-year loan. You can still, I think, Vic, do you know what 15-year loans are now?
Under 5.
Under 5? Well, that was good. Narrowed that right down. Anyway, when you have good credit, that's a really good system, under 5%.
It's still good.
340-1590, 340-1590.
Joe, quickly, anybody have any dark clouds on the economy, or are we still pretty much go?
I've heard nothing, even the most pessimistic, for 19. Very, very few are saying 20. Now, the reality, 20 is going to be an election year. Almost never do we have a bad election year economy. 21, there's the harbingers of doom that said 19 was going to be, then it said 20 was going to be. Now they're into 21. Isn't it? You hear?
Eventually they'll be right.
Oh, eventually they'll
it's
be right.
It's cyclical, and eventually it's going to go down.
Eventually, has to. No such thing always goes up.
Right.
They'll find a new way to con the system and make it happen.
Economy keeps moving up, Trump wins.
Well, that's exactly my prediction, your prediction, Dan's prediction.
My prediction is Trump won't even be there because when the Mueller report comes out, he'll be gone.
I don't think so.
We'll see.
Well, you got the new Attorney General appointed by Trump. He said he's not exposing it to anybody.
We'll see.
Trump will by tweeting it.
Yeah, he can't help himself. He can. 340-1590, 340. How much time do we have? Goodbye, we say, until next week.
Bye.
Thanks very much,
Bye.
everybody that called. Bye.
You've been listening to the Team Martek Hour. The Team Martek Hour is a paid program. The content was provided by the advertiser. WPSL, its staff, management, and ownership were not responsible for its content. Investment involves risk. Prior to making any investment, an investor should meet suitability requirements. Past results are not necessarily indicative of future performance. Neither the opinions expressed nor the information provided constitutes a recommendation to purchase or provide investment advice. The material presented is not a substitute for obtaining professional advice from a qualified person or firm. Securities offered through Centaurus Financial, member FINRA and SIPC. Tune in again next Wednesday at 11:05 for the Team Martek Hour here on WPSL 1590.